Peter, Paul, Parker, welcome to the MindShift podcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good, Daryl. Lovely to see you. Good to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm super excited to have you. I think we were scheduled several months ago and we had to reschedule for some odd reason. You remember that?
Yes, I do. Yes, I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Something came up back in January, but here we are in June and we are good to go. So I'm glad to have you here. Why don't you take a second and let everyone know where you're joining us from in the world today?
I live in Surbiton. It's actually Greater London, Southwest London, and there used to be a TV program called The Good Life in Surbiton, where people were growing their own food and trying to become self-sufficient. We're not trying to become self-sufficient, but we actually grow our own food. So we do sometimes get lumped on with the living the good life in Surbiton. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, Peter, I'm excited about your background and how this conversation is going to play out today. I mean, I have a big interest in meditation. You're a meditation coach, you're a QiGong instructor, sound healer, public speaker, former musician. But why don't I give you the floor here for a minute or two and let you introduce yourself to our audience? Tell them a little bit about Peter Paul Parker.
Peter Paul Parker was born into a idyllic family, really. It was wonderful. And unfortunately, that started going wrong when I was young. My father became disabled at 10. My mother died at 11. Went to a really good
Oh,
school, must admit, and got to 19. My father died. Then I went into the sales world, and I found that very stressful because I was that highly sensitive, and we'll get into that a bit later, which is why I got into meditation, really. And I was successful at it. I was really successful because I was authentic. I think being authentic in sales and in any business, you actually do thrive in it. But it was too much for me, and I was really artistic, so I decided to become a professional musician. After that dried up a little bit, I went on to I had to find something, and I found qigong classes, and I fell in love with it. I was asked by my mentor to go and teach at an elderly community centre, thinking I don't know anything about this. What am I supposed to be doing? I just stuck to the training, and after about 6, 7 people turned up every week, and then it went to 10, and it went to 15, 20. Then all of a sudden the room was packed every week, and I was
mm,
going, wow, there's something to this. And because I was thinking, how can you teach elderly people something completely alien to them that's like 2,000, 3,000 odd years old? And they really took to it really well. So that's what got me into becoming a Qigong instructor. And then from that and my experience of coming over out of my trauma, I became a coach for highly sensitive people. So it's been quite a journey for me, and I've been winding my way through that. And there's been some real challenges on the way, but it's been interesting, and it's helped me grow as a human being, which is, I think, what we're all here to do is actually keep growing. And that's what my potted history has been like.
I love that. I love that. We're all here to grow, and it's interesting. You know, we talk about the mind shift. The theme of mind shift is just discussing the journey from inspiration to realization, and when life knocks us down from breakdown to breakthrough. And sometimes people, and I definitely want to go here in just a moment because we talked a little bit offline about the transition, that shift in your journey when music changed for you, and we shared a little bit of a laugh, and I think it'll be very helpful for our audience to talk there, and we'll go right there in a minute. But it's so interesting because you've pivoted a number of times in life. And first of all, let me say, and I know it's been many, many years since this happened, but what in I want to take you there if possible, and if you don't want to go there, that's okay. But man, both parents early in life. What was did I hear that right? You lost your
Yes, yes,
yes.
yes.
I mean, what was it like being you know a adolescent, becoming a teenager, and to have both parents? I mean, what?
You become very, very numb, um, almost pulling yourself out of the world. I relied heavily on my friends and actually my brothers for to a certain extent. But I had a couple of really good friends, and they really helped to focus me. And what really turned me was my family was all into music, and I loved music and the vibration of
Mm,
music and the excitement of music. So I picked up a guitar first, and then I picked up the bass guitar, and then I picked up the bass guitar. Luckily, I had good friends around me, and they said, "That's you. That's you. You just express yourself so well on that.
mm,
That's amazing." So I started to learn all the rock riffs like from Zeppelin and all that kind of stuff. I was learning all that stuff on the bass guitar, picking it up really quickly, and that was like now I realise that was like a meditation for me because it was
Yes.
focusing my mind on what I wanted to do. Because otherwise, if I was focusing on what was happening to me, that was awful, absolutely
Hmm.
awful. When I look back, it's almost like looking at a different human being. But when I was focusing on the music and where I wanted to take the music, I wanted to be a rock star. Because, I want to be a
Right.
rock star, and it was like that was it. That was the driving force for me to get through those traumatic years, and
Hmm.
like jumping into sales felt alien to that drive, even though it was well paid and I had all the trimmings of being in a big sort of good career. It wasn't fulfilling me. So it was that changing of mindset of going, okay, I'm expected because I've had this education to go in and thrive in this sales career. I thought, no, I can't do that. And it was the change in me to say, I've had enough of this. I've got to do this, because the trauma and the stress and all of that was like burning away at me, thinking, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. What do I do? And it was almost like pulling the top off a pressure cooker. It's like, shh, all the stress that
Yes.
came out, because I thought,
Yeah.
yes, this is what I really want to do. And that was my passion. And then, of course, I had all the attacks of, are you mad? Are you sure you want to do this? What are you doing? You're walking out of a good career and you're following your passion. I'm going, maybe I am mad, but I just couldn't cope with that. It was just that underlying trauma underneath,
Yeah.
which I've actually got rid of now, and I don't mind talking about it. It's almost like talking about it from a different person, because I've done so much internal work. But
Yes.
that was the shift in me, and it was an incredible one. And it was funny because back in those days, you could pick up quite quick work. Because I went to base college and learnt the scales and all the nodes and everything like that. And you could pick up work quite quickly, so you could pick up really funny little jobs like for £100, which was quite a lot of money in those days, and you get like £200 worth of work in a week. You'd get
Hmm.
£50 for your rent, and you buy your food, which was a lot cheaper then, and therefore you could build that up to getting like two, three, four, £500 a gig, and getting them regularly. And it was a good process to learn for me, because I was just focused on it 100%. I had no idea what was going on in the world. I think I went through a couple of economic crises. I don't know, maybe a pandemic or something. I don't know, because I was so focused on music.
Yeah.
I was so
Yeah.
100% focused on it. So it was almost to the point of obsession, because of it was getting me away from my trauma. But that was the difficult part. When I came out of music, that started to bite me again, like
Yeah.
haunted
Yeah.
me again, to think,
Yeah.
oh, I haven't really
It was like,
dealt with it. I was just not ignoring it, but I was so focused on something else. So yeah,
yeah.
that was tough.
Yeah.
That was a tough period.
You said so many interesting things that I want to kind of just see if I can quickly summarize and touch on a couple of big points. And today you're a meditation coach, but you said early on in this part of the trauma was the you found the love in music. Your family was instrumental in music, and it was able to move your focus away from the trauma. The trauma was a fact. The trauma was real, and I often say in the mind shift method, the way I think about it, and it came from my own experience, but I realized that my experience is very similar to the human experience. I'm not unique. I'm not an alien. I'm a human. We all face these what I call breakdowns, and
Yeah,
whether we cause them or not. But the facts are the facts. You couldn't change the facts that your parents were gone. And then the question is, what are we going to do now? Step two is, what do we do now? Like, what is our new decision now? You chose music. And I love how you said it. In a way, it was like meditation. It was like, I always say, I make jokes that when I exercise or when I run, it's not because I want to go be on a bodybuilding stage or I want to try to run a marathon. It's me extracting myself from whatever my current reality is, good, bad, or indifferent, because I have to focus on the thing. You were focusing on the craft of music and
yeah.
notes. And then your passion of wanting to learn the riffs from the Zeppelins and I'm sure the ACDCs and some of those
Oh
folks. And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I think that's so interesting. One other thing you said, just for my audience who is not familiar with the British word "mad," when you said your friends were saying, "Are you going mad?" My understanding of that word is if you're in the United States or North America, we would say you're going crazy. What are you crazy? Right?
Yeah,
Is that
yes,
the
yes,
same
yeah,
word?
yeah. Exactly the same thing. Mad, mad, crazy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyway, I love that, and so I do want to come back to this period when music, music. You talked to me offline, and I want to, if we can go there. when music was dissipating it as a revenue stream, as an income stream, and you said the trauma, you almost came back to a point of trauma once again. Let's pick it up there and talk about what were you experiencing, and also what did you decide to do to kind of make it through that season of life? Because you know, the way I think about it is sometimes when we're so wrapped up in something and that something comes to an end, our identity was so tied to that thing, whatever that thing is, a career, a relationship, a process, an entertainment, love, or passion. Let's pick up your story there, and I'd love to have you share a little bit about that particular part of your journey.
Yeah, that was very difficult because can you imagine me saying for 10 odd years, hi, meeting people, hello, my name's Peter, I'm a professional musician or I'm a professional bass player. So it was a label that I didn't do anything else and I didn't know how to do anything else. I was just, you asked me to change a plug on a lead, I'd go, how do you do that? I was completely, give me strings, I could fix a guitar, I could do anything with a guitar, but anything in the household, my wife
The
was
lights
going,
out. I don't know. As long as the guitar works, is the electricity still on? That's all I know.
well, it works, so it must be. So
I love that.
that was really difficult. That was really difficult. I was kind of, I could cook because I loved cooking, but practicality wise, my wife now, she was my partner at the time. She said, "Where have you been? What have you been doing with your life?" It's like, yeah, I've been a musician, and she had to adapt a little bit to. Because it's it's a vocation, it's a way of life rather than a profession. Well, it was back then anyway, what I was doing. But that, having to stop saying that, hi, my name's Peter, I'm a musician, was really difficult. I didn't want to lose that label because I was quite, well, I was actually not foolish pride, but I was proud of what I'd achieved. I got into the who's who of British popular music. I played with bands like Thin Lizzy, like old rock bands, and people like the Suggs, and some big names in the music business. I got in the who's who of British popular music through my endeavours. So I did a lot of good things. So to drop that was really difficult, and it was a few months kind of in the doldrums. Oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? My wife and I went to a Mind, Body, Spirit festival in Earl's Court in London, and we took some of these photographs. I think they're Hegelian photographs, the aura photographs where they picture light around you. Mine was all blue and mysterious, and hers was all beautiful and red and yellow. And she said, "I want one like yours because apparently you're more into esoteric stuff." And I said, "All right." So we walked around the corner, and she got it done again, and hers is exactly the same. But I didn't bother. I was just speaking to one of these Korean masters, and I was going on, a bit of crying, pity party going on a bit. Oh, I was a musician and blah blah blah. She goes, "You should come to class. Come to one of these classes." And I said, "Okay." And I'd studied Bruce Lee's Taekwondo type training in my 20s, which was brilliant, and that really helped me with the mindset of Bruce Lee. Because anything Bruce Lee says, I think is like amazing.
Right.
So I had that mindset anyway, going to group classes. So it didn't bother me going into a group class being taught by a master, as it were. So I started training, and as soon as I started taking it seriously and focusing my mind on my body while I was moving, and my breath, which is really the essence of QiGong, focusing your mind on your body and your breath, I suddenly realised I don't feel stressed or anxious in here at all. I feel really good. This is amazing. And then after a little while, quite a long while actually, while I was doing the training, where I was saying I was offered a spot in an elderly community centre, and I decided to take it more seriously and thinking, well, maybe I should become an instructor here. That's when it all really started to change, because my mind shift actually changed to think, I've got to master this. If I like I did with the bass guitar, I've got to master this. I've got to make this me. I must be able to say, "Hi, my name's Peter. I'm a QiGong instructor, or I'm a meditation coach, or one of those things that I can actually introduce myself." Not that I'm obsessed with labels anymore. I think I'm just a human being now at the end of the day that has all these different attributes to them.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to do that. So I jumped into everything. I got all the coaching, all the mentoring, all the mastering. We went to Korea in 2016 as the British QiGong team, which was a real eye opener for me. And we actually won the international competition for our QiGong sequence.
Wow.
But in that cave, this is a really pinnacle part of my life, a real transformation of my life. In that cave, we went to a cave where it was a meditation on childhood traumas and childhood hurts. And I was like a time capsule. It felt like a time capsule in this meditation, going through all these times when I've forgiven somebody or realized that I'd done the wrong thing there. And then all of a sudden it stopped. And it went to the point where when my father died and his estate was split up, my two eldest brothers, they were given, they got houses out of the estate and also two good careers. One of them a chiropractor, one of them I think it was an airline pilot, yeah. And I suddenly realised that they'd done that, and I'd been in such a daze and so focused on what I was doing, I didn't really focus on that, and I didn't realise I was harbouring so much anger about that. And what I did in that moment, I forgave them straight away. I've learnt this Hawaiian technique of forgiveness, and I forgave them, thinking they must have been in a heck of a state as well to have to actually do that to their four younger brothers. So I walked out of that cave, and my master said to me, "Peter, what's happened to you? What's that?" I said, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" And then I explained the story. I said, "I just forgave them." I said, "You've released all that anger out of your face."
Wow.
And you're so... I became so much more focused then about what I
Wow.
wanted to do, because I was carrying that all this time, and I was obviously nursing it with the music and the obviously it was a bit alcoholic rock musicians, as the reputations are true, and it was a bit. So with anger, because it's based in your liver, now I've learned from QiGong, you do tend to drink. You can drink a lot because it helps
Wow.
to squash the anger in your liver. So I couldn't drink at all, really, very much after that experience. All of
Wow.
that heavy drinking that I used to do is all gone. It all disappeared
Wow.
after that moment. And that's what made me realize that the body is so much more sophisticated than I ever gave it credit for. I just thought it was just something you could use, abuse, and have fun with. But it's actually a lot more sophisticated than we actually give it credit
Yeah.
for. And
Yeah.
that's what took me down the line of learning QiGong, because Qi means energy and Gong means utilizing well. So if you go into even to
Wow.
mainstream, because people think, oh, that all sounds a bit woo-woo, but if you go into mainstream physics now and Einstein, energy never gets destroyed, it only gets transferred. So we
Transferred.
get this negative energy in our body and we can transfer it into positive energy. And the most simplest way of doing that is actually tapping the body. Because what you do, you stimulate the mitochondria in your body, and that brings new energy into the body. So if you keep doing that regularly, keep refreshing your energy in your body, you start to lose all this heavy negative energy, which actually changes your mindset into a more positive and more focused one, which is
Wow.
why I think Qigong is incredible.
Yeah, we need to spend a few minutes here because I know that we certainly can't probably have you get up and demonstrate, but I think for those listening, because I've actually been through one, and you corrected me on this or clarified for this. Let's spend a minute here for the audience listening. I asked you if it was qigong. You said it was qigong, the Korean version, and so let's explain that because I mean, and it's only been a couple of years that I even heard the phrase qigong. But can you just distinguish the two and just elaborate a little bit on the practice of, you know, is it like yoga? Is it like what is it? Is it like Pilates? I mean, give our audience some sense of, for who's never done it, what it actually is, because it is involving the body and motion. But share a little bit about that if you can.
Qigong from Korea really came from Sundo. Sundo meant mountain people. So if you know anything about the Tao philosophy, and Lao Tse, he disappeared up into the mountains and wrote the Tao Te Ching, which is what a lot of these wise people have done. They've just disappeared out of society because it's all so crazy and they can't cope with it, and they come back down with this amazing book. So it came from Sunday, but basically, as far as my research goes, and I've gone quite deeply into it, there's an eight paths of yoga that comes from the Vedas, and it looks like what happened with Buddhism that came down to Southeast Asia, and that influenced Southeast Asia with like a watered down version of the eighth path of yoga, and that turned into a qigong practice, which was starting to become a martial art. Tai Chi is the martial art. Qigong is the healing art inside of it, and I'll get
Hmm.
to what qigong really is in a sec. But Tai Chi, yeah, the martial art, and what it is, it's you've got like this very masculine spiritual practice, I suppose you could call it, which is the Vedas, the Vedic scripts of India, and they're like so many books is ridiculous. And Vedas just simply means life. It means a way of life. So if you ask a real Hindu what their religion is, well, it's not really a religion. It's just it's a way of life. It's how the books set it out. But you don't stick to the books. You actually start to work it out for yourself. So that went down to Southeast Asia, which became the Tao philosophy. And the Tao philosophy is more feminine, it's more flowing and easy to do, whereas the Indian is more male, more sort of regimented, and that's what really attracted me to Qigong, because it is a bit like yoga because there is stretching involved. It is a bit like Pilates because there is strengthening involved. It is a bit like meditation because there is meditations involved.
Hmm.
It incorporates virtually everything. So
Yeah.
what happens with Qigong is you could say even a yoga class would be a Qigong class, or a Pilates class could be a Qigong class, because as long as you're focusing your mind on your body and your energy, that is really what Qigong is. So, but a lot of people do it like the hula hula dance, all the soft stuff, which is all nice, and that's all part of it. And I'm not knocking it by saying that, because I do that myself. I think it's nice. But
Yeah.
it's really, if you think about your body, and there's easy demonstrations to get you straight away to show you how disconnected you are from your body. And it's connecting back to your body, because we don't even think about our fingertips, and the amount of people who can't just bring their little finger down on its own, just bend it in the middle, or even split the fingers like that. Can you split the fingers like that and open the middle fingers and then the
Uh,
outside fingers?
little. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was on camera, but yeah, I think I was doing it.
And then do it with
So
the other hand. So you outside fingers with the one hand and in,
yeah, that's yeah.
and then you
Those who
swing.
are listening right now and not watching on YouTube, you got to go to YouTube and see how confused I was with. he
And
he was
when we
he was demonstrating purposely. So you got to head over to the YouTube channel and check that out. But anyway, I appreciate the background. What I'm hearing is, and it's almost interesting, right? This world, as big as it is actually really small. And in the
yes,
end of the day, we use different words to mean something similar because it comes from that culture, that region. But if we really get down to the meaning of it, it's body movement. There's activity of stretching. There's going to be obviously focus on the motion at the time. One could argue that any form of exercise is a form of qigong if you think about it, right? Because you've got to spend time focusing on your body. But obviously these practices are pretty intentional. Yoga for me, as I've added yoga, should I say, in the last 10 years, it is the hardest thing ever. It is,
oh
some of it is so hard, and it feels like it's hard in ways that just don't seem to make sense because my body has to move or is not wired with the right flexibility. And so it just continues to let you know there's so much more to the body, as you said before. And it
yeah,
has been an interesting discovery. I want to ask you about your work as a coach in the area of meditation. Um, when did you officially, or when would you kind of say that you've really began looking at meditation? And again, like you said, even the practice of qigong and others could be a form of meditation as well. But when would you say that you got serious about it? I know I can think back to maybe 2011 for me is when I started saying I need another mechanism to find ways to reduce stress. And that's when I first remember thinking about it. But what about it?
yeah.
What was it for you?
Meditation. Again, I looked into the word very deeply, and meditation in the Western way translation for it is to contemplate something deeply. That's what
Hmm.
it actually. That's what the word means. For an enormous umbrella. It's an enormous umbrella, meditation. So just the simple fact of just really 100% focusing on your hand, moving up and down like a slow wave, could be looked upon as a meditation because your mind is 100% focused on that. You're not thinking, "Why am I doing this? This is ridiculous." You're thinking, "Oh yeah, there's a little bit of tension in the wrist. I'll just relax that. I can
Yeah.
feel all the way up to my fingertips." That
Uh-huh.
is, you're starting to focus the mind. The mind is like a time traveler. It can go everywhere, past, future, into the imaginary realms, but the body is really fixed in one place. So I feel meditation is to bring the mind and the body back into union with each other, which
Mm.
actually is kind of yoga. Yoga means union, which is actually really the actual deeper meaning of it is the union with your super soul. The concept of it is to have a conditioned individual soul and a super soul that you connect the two to. So you're getting to higher wisdom and higher philosophies, which from my experience, it really does work because I sometimes when I speak so wisely. I thought, where the heck did that come from? Because you're connecting every day
Yeah.
to this. So
Yeah.
meditation, I think the coaching course I came up with about 4 to 5 years ago, which is the different meditation techniques that I teach through QiGong, really. So the first one really is breathing and breathing meditation, where you can just focus on your breath, and they call it
Yeah.
pranayama in the Vedas. And then I went on to the dream method goes on to moving meditation, which is really QiGong. And then it
Mm.
goes on to guided meditation, which is really the popular thing around the world at the moment, which isn't, I don't think it's meditation. I think you're relying on somebody else, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is losing what you should be doing as a meditator.
Yeah.
The fourth one is silent meditation, which is really hard to get to, which is why I do the 4 steps before you get to silent meditation. And then the last one is sound meditation, which I personally feel is the best thing that we can all do for ourselves is actually sound meditation or sound toning.
Really, really.
Yes. So
Tell
that's
me more.
my
We were
journey.
talking a little bit offline about my. I've got some playlists on my Spotify, a couple channels on YouTube, and I was
Yes.
sharing with you. So this is very interesting. So you're saying, let me just throw a couple thoughts in just for myself. So I started. You talk about silent meditation being the hardest. I remember that was the first experience I had of meditation. I remember sitting down and I was like, it ain't gonna work. It just didn't work. And I, the brain is
God.
moving a mile of it. It's like this. I don't know. I'm never gonna be successful at this meditation. It wasn't. It wasn't until I came across Deepak Chopra's work, of course, well known Deepak Chopra, and I heard him say one thing that sort of did it for me because he has a lot of mantra based meditations, but they're
Oh, yeah,
silent
yeah.
mantras. They're silent mantras, but the key was focus on your breath. So
Mm,
while you're silencing, it's now just to your point of what you did with your hand.
mm,
The thing that sort of made me start to get it was just focus on the inflow and the outflow of the breath.
mm,
And in that subtle command, that subtle instruction, I was able to start to get it. I was able to start to
mm,
because you sit down and you got the air conditioning running in the background, you got the kids going, you got the dogs barking, even if you're in the closet or whatever silent, quiet place. But to speed this up, and I want to go back to the sound healing was you're right. I've got, by the way, my favorite meditation app. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Is called Insight Timer. It seems to be the app that I'm going to pretty regularly. I've tried Calm and a number of the other ones, but Insight Timer is my favorite because it's got a mixture of everything you've just described. It's got guided, it's got music, it's got ocean, it's got um, brown noise, white noise, all the noise colors,
yeah, yeah,
and it's got the sound. Healing. So
yeah.
let's talk about sound healing. Why you feel it's the best? Because I just started using sound based healing or sound based music. Where and first of all, let's describe it because all of this has sound, right? What do you mean when you say sound meditation or sound healing?
Everything is waveform, right? Everything's vibrating as waveform. As I say, we come from energy. Energy is a waveform. And when you look at what we call the chakra system, which is the energy system, you start from the colors of the rainbow, red all the way up to violet. Apparently, it was Isaac Newton who came up with the word indigo to get the color for the sixth chakra, which I thought, wow. So Isaac Newton, somebody who's up in the establishment of England, sort of talking about 6 chakras. I thought that was quite incredible. But
Hmm.
they were talking about it back in those days, which was quite amazing. But if you think about the waveform of the lower chakras, red is a heavy color and it's got a very long, slow waveform. And then you come up to the blues and the purples and the violets, a very quick waveform. So everything has a frequency. When you come up from a low tone all the way up to your high tone, that's the frequency of your body. So you should be like a triangle. A triangle. I know people can't see that when they're listening, but it's like a pyramid. A pyramid. So you should have a strong
Pyramid. Okay.
base and a light top. But most people have a heavy top and a light base because there's too much information in the head. They're not using their body enough. So when you get to that flip triangle with pyramid where the base is strong, that's what works. But what I did, I bought some tuning forks to disprove the chakra system. And what I was so blown away with when I was using the tuning forks over where I was told the chakras were, and they were blocked, it would make it would go. It was like a wow. And then if it was under, actually go. And then after the conversation, I'd clear it. So it would go. I'd clear it with the sound. I've got very good ears. And I would have a conversation with the client who'd come in to me, and I would say, what's been going on in your life then? And they were saying, well, maybe their solar plexus was a bit off. And they would be saying, I haven't been feeling myself recently. I'm just really timid, upset. I'm not really. And I said, well, yeah, your solar plexus was out. That's where your sense of self comes from, or your relationships are having problems, which would be your second chakra, your we call it the lower Dan John in our practice. But what was more interesting than that was these solfeggio tones, which I've always stayed away from channeling, and I still do to a certain extent from people who channel, because you just don't know what they're talking about. But I thought, I was taken by these chakra systems, I thought I'd try the solfeggio tones, which are apparently the layers of frequencies we have outside of our bodies. And I did the same thing. When something was out of tune, I would tune it up, certain patches in the body, I would tune it up. And then I would ask them what's been going on in their life. They were saying, well, I've been having problems. I haven't been able to resolve a problem. And that would come in 741 hertz frequency to say problems and solutions on my solfeggio tones. And honestly, I nearly hit the floor then. I thought, oh, my goodness me. And then when you see actually people now using two frequencies, there's a TED talk on it, two frequencies to kill cancer cells. So they choose one frequency here, which is usually one of the high frequencies of our body, and then they beam in a second frequency, and I think it's about 40 to 60% effective of killing cancer cells in a petri dish with sound.
Wow.
And now with cymatics in universities, they're actually starting to levitate sand off the plates and getting it to spin almost and forming almost like a solar system. So this is all mainstream science. And when you realize, wow, you know, we're almost moving into Buck Rogers territory here, you know, like this is like sci-fi stuff, but it isn't. Our ancestors knew this thousands of years ago. It's just that we've come out of that evolution. Now we're coming back into it. And I do believe that sound will be the healing modality of the future.
Wow.
But it's difficult to monetize it in certain ways, which is you have a machine. Once you get the machine, you've got the machine. You get
Yes.
the tuning force, you've got the tuning force. But I found sound toning your voice, especially up your chakra system. I did it last night, and I just felt so empty and clean and clear. It was just a beautiful experience, and we try and do it once a week here in the house because it helps us sleep better. It makes us everything else feel better. It makes our meditations deeper. I told you the cat might come.
Oh, it's all good.
It's
Yeah.
like it's sound will be, I think, the healing modality of the future. And when this gets recognized that certain parts of your body have certain frequencies, which is happening now, then we'll have little machines to beam that frequency back into the body, to bring that part of the body back into resonance. And I think we're not there yet.
Yeah.
But we can do it for ourselves, which is, to me, even if it's just a deep meditation, If you get rid of all the healing elements to it and forget about what I've just said then, and just think of it as a meditation with using sound, it is so effective. It is
Yeah.
so effective. So yeah,
I love it. This is a really interesting kind of spot to kind of bring this conversation. I wish I'd say we're bringing it home. We've really just begun. But I certainly have been intrigued, and I think the listening audience, I'm even more intrigued by it. I'm really interested in how you finished with this sound and the ability to kill cancer cells. And you said something earlier in the conversation, which I kind of want to just make a point on, and that is, just how incredible our body really is at healing and how it works. And so one of the I'm a big believer um, in and again, as humans, we're flawed in terms of how we speak, because the Bible I read says death and life are in the power of the tongue. And we can say something so positive in one moment, and 2 minutes later we're pissed off, and we say something stupid just moments
mm,
later. And so
mm,
it's a dicey truth. But here's something that I've always said, and I consider it a meditation to myself, and it's a meditation to my body, and it's a super simple phrase. And I think you've actually said this without saying it today, and you can tell me if you agree with this. And I simply say, my body knows how my body knows how to heal itself if ever it's not well. And
yeah,
notice I say my body knows how to heal itself if ever it's not well. And I
yes,
just notice the subtlety of the word when. So I'm trying to not, I'm not illogical about the ebbs and flows of virus and things of nature, but I say this on a regular basis, very subconsciously, very quietly. I don't preach it on a loud microphone,
mm,
but I believe in that, and I believe it holistically. It doesn't mean I'm immune
no,
to. I got COVID a couple years ago, like everybody, So, but I
yeah, yeah,
still believe that my body knows how to heal itself, and that's, to me, as I've gotten older, having played sports when I was a kid, and you know, it it's funny. Certain injuries, the doctor can't do anything for you, so it's
yeah,
proof. Like the doctor can't do anything for you. Like you sprain your ankle, doctor can't fix that. There's no surgery for a sprained ankle. There's no surgery for technically a disjointed, or you pop a finger out of socket. There's a way to put it back in and let it heal.
mm,
So it's very interesting. And over the years of meditation, I've just kind of landed on that and kind of spoken that over my life. And then you're saying this sound is all part of it. And again, it seems to just be all about focus. If I were to
yes,
simplify, it's all about just removing our focus from our present trauma,
yes,
situation,
mm,
facts, circumstances, the economy. Yesterday I made a comment. It was about to rain in Vegas. It never did, but it looked like it was about to thunderstorm. And I said, the issue is if I wished for the thunderstorm to go away because I wanted to wash my car, then that's not really good focus, because the clouds are actually there. The clouds
yeah,
are there, and it looks like it's going to drop some water. So either I choose to wash the car and then I'm okay if it gets wet, or I choose to make a better decision and change my focus and say, maybe I'll wash the car another day. And I think in a very simple way in life, when we have things that are either minor or major, it's amazing how long we stay focused on the problem as opposed to
yes,
just simplifying our focus. And I know it's easier said than done. Listen, I've had quite a few of um, the things. You lost your father early age. I just lost my father weeks ago, and
sorry to hear
it's a
that. Yeah,
different. Thank you. Yeah, it's a different. It's a fact. It's a truth. And our logical mind and our emotions, they just don't sit in the same spot.
no,
So
no, no, no.
anyway,
But
Peter,
it's about
yeah.
yeah. I think the with qigong, what I say, your intention
Mm.
plus your movement equals a healing. Your
Oh, that
intention,
powerful word, intention. Oh my
yeah,
geez,
or your
that word by itself.
intention plus the sound equals
Oof.
healing. So it always comes down to intention. I love the sound healers because a lot of them get hung up on the note, and I do use the C D E F G scale, which I would use from the guitar, but it doesn't matter about that. It doesn't matter as long as it's a low tone or a high tone. It's your intention plus the note equals the healing. So it's always your power of intention, which is incredible.
Oh my.
Absolutely incredible. So, yeah.
You couldn't have ended this on a better comment. The word intention, one of the most powerful words in our language in
Yeah.
terms of, and it goes back a little bit to our focus. Like in this moment, what do I want to focus on? And what is my intention even? So what do you really hope to have happen by continuing to focus on the negative side?
Yeah.
What is your hope? Do you expect a better outcome by focusing on the negative side of it? And
Mm.
so it's like this yin yang, pain, pleasures, like decide where we want to go and where does your intention lie. I think that's so beautiful for us to end on. Let me ask you this. um, how can people find you, connect with you, work with you? What do you have in your business model that someone who's listened today who is intrigued that they can come take a look at what's going on in your world?
Well, Google Peter Paul Parker, but I've got a website, peterpaulparker.co.uk, or on social media. I'm on Facebook, Peter Paul Parker. You'll find me very quickly. So it's very easy to find me. Just make sure you put the Paul in, otherwise you get Spider-Man and all this crazy stuff with the man running around in the suit. So put the Paul
That's
in.
not you. Oh my
It's not
gosh,
me.
that's not you. Are you kidding me?
Sorry to disappoint. Yeah, I know. I know.
Oh my gosh. I was this whole time.
You got the wrong
Yeah,
man.
I was upset. I've been duped.
So
Anyway,
that's it. That's it. Peter Paul Parker. So I've got a website. I've got peterpaulparker.com is actually my dream method, where you can watch, if you're highly sensitive, you can watch a webinar on the 5 steps I take people through with the dream method, which is what I was talking about earlier,
yeah,
about the 5 phases of 5 types of meditation to get you to a point where you can just, I can meditate. Yeah. But you can say that. Whereas, and you can say, I can deal with my highly sensitivity. So peterpaulparker.com is that one.
good.
But yeah,
Well,
contact me, and I'm really happy to answer any questions. I love communicating with people. I love helping people. And I love sorting things out. So yeah.
I can sense that. Yeah, you're a giver, and I can sense that and feel that. And we'll link up all of the ways to reach Peter in the show notes or the description wherever you're listening to this podcast. Peter, I'm gonna put you on the spot for our final question today, and that is, since you brought up your passion and study of Bruce Lee, could I could I could I could I get your favorite Bruce Lee quote or mantra or rule or philosophy, whatever that might look like from your study?
I think when it says you don't, your brain does not know what is real and what isn't. So if you keep feeding your brain with negative words, you will start to create a negative life.
Wow, that fits perfectly with what we talk about here, which the simple mantra, the MindShift way, the MindShift podcast, the business is, and it speaks to shifting your mind so you can shift your
Yeah, it's always
results.
about shifting the
It's
mind. Yeah,
always a shift, right? So, and we all do it. None of us are immune to negative thinking. None of us are immune to the emotion and the fear and the pain and the anger and all of those things. But it's about how quickly we can shift our focus to the thing that we actually want. So, with
yeah.
what you said, which is that intention and movement
Intentions
and focus,
always
I
there.
love it. Peter, appreciate our chance to connect today. Really enjoyed having you on the podcast. Hopefully, I can have you back at some point in the future.
Oh, always, yeah. I always speak. It's been lovely. You're a real pleasure, and you're a diamond yourself, Daryl.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Well, my friends, thank you for listening to today's episode of the MindShift podcast. And if you want to connect with Peter, be sure to check out the description and the show notes. Get all the links to his Instagram, his website, his Dream Method webinar process. And again, I like to bring on people that really help expand the conversation to help you shift your mind so you can shift your results. And I remember when I saw Peter's work, I was like, this is going to be a very interesting conversation because I've got a little bit of insight on 3 or 4 of his topics, but I always consider myself a rookie, and I hope I've asked him some questions that have opened up some answers for you as well. If you're not a part of the growth-driven entrepreneur community and you are an entrepreneur looking to market, grow, and scale your business, I would still invite you every single time to come over to growthdrivenentrepreneur.com, join us for our next free masterclass. And until then, I'm your host, Daryl Evans, and I'll see you on another episode of the MindShift podcast. Take care. Hey, it's Daryl Evans. Hit the subscribe button so you can become a part of the MindShift community. We'll help you shift your mind so you can shift your results.